He vanished, just like that. No farewell, no storyline wrap-up, not even a cryptic Instagram live. Bilal, one of the most polarizing figures in 90-Day Fiancé history, is simply gone. And if you blinked, you missed it. The network didn't announce it, the cast didn't comment, but the fans, oh, they noticed, and not just Bilal. Adnan and Tigerlily were erased like they never existed. Promotional trailers, social media banners, even backstage clips, clean sweep. Which begs a question so big, it's starting to shake apart the entire 90-Day house. What happened behind the scenes that TLC is suddenly trying to delete its own stars? This is Sarah from Sister Wives Daily, and if you're watching closely, so much more than love stories is falling apart here. Welcome to the channel. Subscribe if you haven't already, and drop your theories in the comments, because after this one, you'll have a lot to say. Let's not pretend TLC hasn't played with chaos before. Emotional roller coasters practically built this franchise, messy breakups, accusations flying like confetti, manipulation wrapped in wedding dresses, but this is different. Completely silent erasure, that's not drama, that's damage control. Fans noticed Bilal fading out across episodes, airtime cut short, mentions disappeared, Instagram promotion dried up. Then, people started asking, wait, has he been fired? And are we just supposed to pretend he never existed? The weird part, TLC did nothing to clarify, not a tweet, not a PR leak to soften the message, zero, and when Adnan and Tigerlily were quietly removed next, the silence got louder. No tell-all appearance, no digital footprint. One week they were being teased in upcoming scenes, the next, ghosted harder than a first date who asks for your Netflix password. The 90-Day community lit up, Reddit threads exploded, reaction videos spiraled, because this kind of silence doesn't happen for no reason, especially not from a network that thrives on controversy. Normally, they milk fan outrage. Think about it, when Bilal was facing backlash for his gaslighting behavior or controlling tendencies, TLC didn't flinch. In fact, they re-aired it in spin-offs, used it in previews, built hashtags around it, but something changed. And it isn't only about uncomfortable behavior anymore. The whispers behind the scenes started growing louder. Insiders started leaking that things were far worse off camera than fans were allowed to see. Not just twisted storylines, but some actual red flag level chaos, financial misconduct, consent and contract manipulation, emotional exploitation, and if that sounds extreme, you're not alone. Even production staff allegedly got uncomfortable. When the people holding the camera start panicking about what's in the footage, you know it isn't just another breakup storyline. The question quickly shifted from, why is Bilal gone, to, what did they know and when did they know it? And then the real bomb dropped. A senior production figure allegedly called an emergency meeting and asked out loud, on record, if some of the unaired footage could expose the network to legal risk. Imagine that, not heartbreak, not cheating, but lawsuits, and right alongside it, Adnan and Tigerlily's off-screen drama was apparently going off the rails. Several insiders claimed the couple was fighting production for months. Disputes over editing, how they were portrayed on camera, and their refusal to go along with scripting techniques that supposedly framed them as villains. If you're thinking, but isn't all reality TV kind of fake? Sure, to a point. But when cast members are allegedly pressured into emotional outbursts and then publicly humiliated, that's not editing, that's coercion. Tigerlily and Adnan reportedly demanded specific scenes be removed. Denied, things escalated. Threats of lawsuits were allegedly exchanged. Multiple crew members called the situation volatile, and before any more bombs dropped, TLC went nuclear. Complete erasure, scrubbed from official channels, mentions deleted. Like they never existed. Viewers weren't just seeing missing faces, they were seeing warning signs the size of billboards. And here's where the paranoia sets in. Because if Bilal, Adnan and Tigerlily were this deeply entangled in controversy that the network felt it had to wipe them out silently, how many others are currently skating on thin ice? Suddenly, the audience started reviewing past seasons with fresh eyes. Remember Angela's violent outbursts, Paul's stalking, Larissa's plastic surgery drama built into an entire arc, all aired, all monetized, never deleted. So why this sudden shift? The answer hitting most people now is risk. The fans didn't walk away, the advertisers might, that's the difference. Let's not get it twisted, either. This wasn't about fan outrage alone. Twitter outrage trends every Tuesday. What made this feel different, truly threatening, was the pattern. Quiet contract reviews, missing footage, cast going offline, sponsors allegedly asking questions, not about views but values. The second a scandal threatens profits, it stops being entertainment and starts being a liability. Inside TLC, according to whispers, panic became protocol. Legal teams were reportedly called in. Not to protect the cast, but the company. Internal documents, NDAs from earlier seasons, even old footage archives were being combed through looking for red flags nobody cared about before. That's not showbiz. That's crisis mode. And still, the silence remains, which leaves fans to piece together truth with duct tape and Twitter receipts. But here's what makes this story too big to ignore. What if this isn't about one couple? What if everything fans assumed was just how reality TV works was deliberately scripted pain for profit? The disappearing cast, the mysteriously cancelled interviews, the unreleased scenes, they aren't plot holes anymore. They're threats. And that silence TLC thought would protect them? It's doing the opposite. Every unanswered question becomes a theory. Every missing cast member becomes a potential whistleblower. Every passive edit feels like a redacted file. Fans no longer believe what they're watching. Now, they're watching what's not being shown. And they're not letting it go. Because the moment you start treating real relationships like scripted chaos, and it backfires, viewers stop rooting for the romance and start looking for the receipts. And receipts? The 90-day fanbase has folders. More alarming still, there's a growing theory that Bilal wasn't fired immediately, that he was quietly sidelined until some legal red zone was crossed. That for months, producers tried to ride the line between controversial but clickable and cancelled and dangerous. And when the balance tipped, poof, gone, no public accountability, no explanation, just vanished. The kind of vanishing that looks more like hiding than ending. What happens when the story eats the storytellers? From the start, Bilal wasn't your typical 90-day fiancé cast member. He wasn't chaotic like Big Ed, not volatile like Angela, he was calculated. Pristine suits, smooth words, rehearsed charm. The man knew how to present a clean surface. But that polish, it didn't go unnoticed. Viewers weren't enchanted, they were uneasy. Because behind the quiet tone and endless lecturing, something felt off. That calm was loaded, like you were watching someone perform being calm while actively controlling the room. He came in with money, or at least talked like he did. Real estate background, luxury cars, financial advice disguised as relationship guidance. But love isn't a business meeting, and fans caught on quick. Every conversation somehow circled back to control. What was his, what wasn't hers, and how she should behave to deserve his version of commitment. Shida, sweet and soft-spoken, initially tried to meet his structure with calm curiosity. But painfully often, she was shut down with spiritual guilt trips or subtle jabs about how lucky she should be. What created real heat wasn't just what Bilal said, but when conversations flowing naturally would suddenly turn ice cold. Praise turned into creative shaming. "I'm just trying to teach you," would often follow controlling remarks. It was the kind of behavior you couldn't always catch in a quote, but you could feel through the screen. The emotional tone was unsettling, and comments didn't hold back. The fanbase labeled it as manipulative, even abusive. Clips went viral. Him fake pranking her with a rundown home tour as a test, constant mentioning of prenups, and turning romance into a structured performance review of her worthiness. YouTube channels started pausing episodes frame by frame. TikToks analyzed his body language. Reddit typed essays on power dynamics. The fans weren't watching the relationship blossom, they were auditing it. When viewers start creating PowerPoint presentations about your behavior, you're not charming anymore. You're a case study. All of this might have stayed in the realm of opinion. Uncomfortable, yes, but personal interpretation. Until whispers from production started leaking. Multiple sources claimed Bilal's behavior behind the scenes triggered actual concern. Financial inconsistencies allegedly popped up, not just in how Hep portrayed himself on camera, but in how he engaged off it. Claims began surfacing of producers quietly double-checking what Shida had agreed to versus what she was promised. Some of these screenshots and messages began circulating, but even without ironclad proof, the cloud around him thickened. Insiders reportedly warned TLC that continuing to platform him could be risky. Not because of audience rage, but because the storyline was now threading dangerously close to potential legal or ethical violations. TLC is used to risky love matches, but manipulation with alleged money bait involved. That's not spicy storyline energy, that's lawsuit bait. The camera is focused on Bilal's finances, his assets, his businesses, the prenup, the power imbalance, but behind the polished walls, viewers started suspecting that a lot of what they were watching was more illusion than reality. And suddenly, what was supposed to be clean-cut safety turned into a PR wildfire no one could outrun. Shida, meanwhile, was shifting under the weight of her own storyline. Because no matter how perfectly she smiled, people started worrying for her. Especially as the clearer picture emerged of how much pressure she was under, emotionally, spiritually, and legally. Fans went from questioning her decisions to actively offering her resources for support. Some even started GoFundMe pages, prepared to offer her a way out if things escalated. There were entire threads dedicated not to Bilal, but to Shida's eyes, the way they darted when he interrupted, the way her smile stiffened, the way she attempted to express boundaries, only for them to be carefully steamrolled. And the timeline matters here, because Bilal didn't disappear at once, it was gradual. Episode to episode his presence faded, less screen time, fewer social media posts, no reunion drama. Eventually he was edited like vapor. And yet the show moved on without him, as if his arc held no narrative weight. When a 90-day character just gets quietly chipped out of the frame, It screams cleanup job. Some believe a final straw moment happened, off camera. Whispers include a specific financial exchange or demand involving Shida's name and property issues. Nothing is confirmed, but the insider chatter is consistent. Something happened that made the risk of keeping Bilal on far greater than the value of storyline continuation. They didn't fire him because the internet hated him. They allegedly fired him because legal started getting nervous. But if there's one thing more controversial than keeping him, it's erasing him. Because now fans don't just want him removed, they want answers. What did TLC know and when? Why was this allowed to go on so many seasons? And if viewers could see the problem from episode 2, why didn't producers intervene sooner? Shida, tragically, remains stuck in limbo. Her narrative is tied to a man who may be legally toxic. And because of NDAs, she can't clarify, explain, or process publicly. Watching her now feels like watching someone navigate emotional sinkholes and trying not to get caught slipping. For a while, TLC might have banked on things dying down, viewers moving on, short attention spans, but the opposite is happening. Because deleting Bilal didn't end the conversation, it ignited it. And now, where his episodes used to run, there's a silence louder than any monologue. When the villain disappears mid-arc, fans don't clap, they chase the ending. At first, Shida stayed quiet out of grace, that's who she is. Composed, respectful, always thinking 10 steps ahead, even when her entire storyline was slipping out of her hands. But as Bilal's presence faded and questions exploded around his alleged firing, her silence stopped feeling classy. For some fans, it started to feel like cover. That shift happened fast. One week, she was receiving love and sympathy from a fandom that saw her as strong and patient. The next, she was being called complicit, like silence meant agreement, or worse, protection. But here's what most people forget about this universe. Reality stars don't control their voices, not really. Not without risking everything. Behind every vague Instagram caption was a wall of legal silence, non-disclosure agreements, contract clauses, image restrictions. If Shida wanted to explain, she likely couldn't. And if she did anyway, she'd face the full weight of a network designed not for love, but for liability. Because when the man you once stood next to on TV becomes a scandal behind the scenes, your whole brand gets infected by proximity. And it's cruel, because while Bilal's alleged behavior earned him backlash he arguably brought on himself, Shida's backlash came for simply surviving it. She didn't deny anything. She didn't defend him in interviews. She didn't post misleading content or drag another cast member into chaos. But fans wanted more. They wanted her to burn bridges they couldn't see, to speak feelings she wasn't allowed to say. And when she didn't, they started erasing her from sympathy, too. If silence protects liability, who protects the truth? Sometimes it wasn't even what she didn't say, it was what she still shared. A yoga video, a quote about marriage. Anything less than full separation was instantly read as loyalty to someone millions now found disturbing. But loyalty isn't always love, and silence isn't always choice. People forget how much contracts control reality stars. Shida's words don't belong to her. Not right now. They belong to networks, editors, and legal teams more invested in silence than clarity. Behind the scenes, insiders claim she wasn't calm at all. That Shida had asked production more than once for clarity, where she stood in all this, what they expected from her, how much fallout was going to come her way. She asked for protection, not just legally, but emotionally, because the backlash was getting real, and she'd done nothing but try to make her relationship work on a camera that didn't always show her full side. And that's the catch. The emotional toll hits twice. First in the relationship, if everything being said about Bilal had even partial truth behind it, then Shida lived in that confusion before anybody else did. And second, the isolation. Because when the public turns on your partner, and then quietly starts turning on you, who do you turn to? There's no shoulder for reality stars when question marks become storylines. You can't explain your side or your past. And if you appear emotional, it gets cast as instability. If you stay quiet, it must be guilt. There's no win. Real pain doesn't perform well under contracts. The part that hurts to realize is that most fans never questioned whether Shida chose silence. They assumed she accepted the terms by default. Few paused to think that maybe she was scared, not of Bilal, but of what the public might do with anything she said. One wrong sentence, twisted as a quote, becomes permanent. Comments don't forget, screenshots are forever, and her future as a public figure could disappear faster than a deleted promo banner. There's also the financial side no one wants to talk about. Because if Shida cuts ties publicly and speaks out, even gently, she risks burning every opportunity that might keep her career alive. Brands don't like women linked to scandal, even if they were the ones harmed. Especially if the network wants it all buried. So what does she do? Leave, speak up, duck and cover, or keep building something quiet on the side and hope people remember that she had grace before the storm hit? To be honest, the audience can be cruel without realizing it. We cheer for bravely spoken truths, not understanding the risk it takes to say anything at all. especially when breaking an NDA can cost someone their livelihood in a single post. People want her to choose a team in a game she never signed up for. What if the loudest statement she can make right now is surviving it longer than they ever expected? There's a theory going around that Shida is playing a long game, that her silence is temporary and strategic, that she's stacking content, building alliances quietly, and preparing to step out when her contract is up or when the house of cards fully collapses. It might not be true, but honestly, if it is, she's smarter than most give her credit for. Because when the internet turns its sympathy into suspicion, the slow burn always outlasts the flash of outrage. And if Shida's waiting for the right moment, the safe window, or even just the legal green light, she might still get to tell her side before this whole franchise eats itself alive. It was impossible to miss them when they arrived. Tigerlily and Adnan came in like a high-voltage drama duo, ready to fight the cameras, each other, and whatever script the producers tried to box them into. Preview clips teased them heavy. Their faces were splashed across Instagram, trailers, and promotional reels. There was no way this couple wasn't being positioned as an upcoming centerpiece. Then, suddenly, they were gone. Not minimized, not phased out, wiped. No tell-all seat, no social reposting, no explanation. Vanishing on reality TV isn't normal. This show specializes in breakups, meltdowns, cheating scandals, even arrests. The messier the better, but full deletion, that's nuclear. And that's exactly what happened to Tigerlily and Adnan. Fans caught it instantly. Editors sliced their appearance mid-season. Their scenes, once hyped, were either reduced or yanked out altogether. Press pages that once listed them cleared. Media shoutouts vanished. People started grabbing screenshots as receipts, desperately trying to piece together what TLC was trying to blot out. It looked less like a creative decision and more like evidence cleanup, which triggered the next wave of questions. Because nobody gets scrubbed this completely unless something really dangerous went down. According to people allegedly close to production, that's exactly what happened. This wasn't about a storyline twist, it was about control. Tigerlily and Adnan challenged it. Sources say they began butting heads with producers early, unhappy with how they were being framed. Conversations were allegedly edited to create narrative traps, with soft moments removed and tension left raw on screen. They objected. Hard. Tigerlily especially refused to play the game. What producers might have expected, as fiery TV allegedly turned into outright refusal. She reportedly demanded footage reviews before airing. That's almost never granted. The editing room is sacred in reality TV because it's where the story actually gets built. Contesting how you're portrayed invites a war, and from the sound of it, that war started fast. You can't control your edit, but you can refuse to sit still while they twist it, and that's exactly what Tigerlily did, loudly. Multiple insiders claim things got worse off camera. Backstage arguments during filming days allegedly turned volatile. There are scattered allegations, some suggesting Adnan was at odds with staff, others hinting at whispered reports of verbal altercations involving both cast and crew. One insider described the mood as radioactive. Everyone was on edge. Another claimed production started documenting everything extra carefully once lawyers got mentioned in casual conversation. The scariest part, allegedly unaired footage. According to whispers, there were scenes filmed that the couple did not want broadcasted under any circumstances. Not outtakes, not bloopers, crucial, core conversations that they felt had been twisted or captured out of context. They allegedly begged producers to cut them. TLC refused. The couple escalated. That may have been the breaking point. Because when you threaten to expose the system's response isn't to edit, it's to erase. Sources say security was even brought in during a final filming session involving Tigerlily and Adnan. Nobody clapped, nobody cried. The team just went silent around them. A decision had already been made. It wasn't about convincing or calming anyone down, it was about protecting the show. And that's what makes this different from your standard reality brawl. Usually, networks lean into the storm. Controversy fuels views. Fighting brings ratings. But in this case, insiders say the fear wasn't about fan reaction, it was legal exposure. If what was being said during those tense filming sessions made it onto footage, it could reset the entire game. The couple's sudden disappearance wasn't damage editing, it was total system shutdown. Tigerlily's defiance, her refusal to comply with how producers allegedly coached scenes, her legal posturing. It made her look less like a cast member and more like a threat, and threats don't get warned, they get wiped. Whether they plan to fight back is the new wild card. Whispers suggest they might go public elsewhere. Independent projects, long-form interviews, maybe even releasing footage anonymously, if they can get access. And if they do, this vanishing will turn into a spotlight no amount of contract law can dim. Because the world they're taking on isn't just a franchise, it's a factory, and every silence they break will echo a lot louder than any scripted reunion show. What began as behind-the-scenes tension quickly turned into a full-blown emergency inside TLC's boardrooms. When fans started noticing missing cast members, deleted promos, and unexplained silence, the network didn't respond with its usual teasing trailers or controlled interviews. It responded the way corporations do when lawyers start pacing the halls in hushed voices, internally, urgently, quietly. According to multiple insiders familiar with the chain of events, the first trigger was Bilal. Not because he said something outrageous on camera, he'd been doing that for seasons. Not even because of the fanbase backlash, which TLC has always treated as part of the ratings strategy. What rattled them was what started happening off camera. Production teams allegedly raised concerns, not about storyline tone but about contracts, consent, finance. The kind of allegations that turn into multi-page legal briefings and crisis management plans. And when Tigerlily and Adnan detonated their side of the storm with refusals, legal threats, and aggressive pushback, everything inside the upper offices changed tone completely. Executives reportedly called emergency roundtables. Legal teams were flown in for marathon sessions, and what they started doing next tells you everything about how rattled they really were. They began rewatching old seasons. Not the usual way, not to prep spin-offs or plot character arcs. This time was different. They weren't hunting for storylines, they were hunting for risk. Footage once seen as colorful character building, tense moments, emotional arguments, minor breakdowns, got re-examined under a harsher light. Could that line be seen as coerced? Was that moment legally viable now? If this cast member sued, would that footage get weaponized? This wasn't reality TV drama anymore. This was brand survival. And in all of this chaos, the most dangerous realization crept through the room. The system wasn't built to protect them. Contracts designed years ago, back when the show was smaller and the fanbase quieter, didn't account for this new level of exposure. Social media has made reality stars into livewire personalities, and every word they say can be turned into evidence. Cast members weren't disposable anymore. Because when they speak up, they don't vanish, they go viral. Executives allegedly started pulling up contracts no one has looked at in years, non-disclosure agreements, image usage terms, consent forms. Suddenly, the standard language that protected TLC all this time looked brittle. Some of the early cast contracts didn't account for social media dragouts, others didn't have strict spoilage clauses, a few were missing critical definitions about what counts as emotional coercion or manufactured conflict. That's when the paranoia kicked in. Because one angry couple is noise, two, a glitch, but what happens if five come forward? Or 10, the house of cards wasn't just wobbling, it was leaning. And behind the scenes, sources claim even seasoned producers looked stunned as meetings circled not around show ratings, but exposure. Risk, brand fallout, public credibility. Staff were allegedly instructed to stay off Reddit, avoid interacting with reaction content on YouTube, and to keep internal documents airtight. But it was too late, the story was out. And nothing scares a corporate giant more than having the right problem land in the wrong influencer's hands. The biggest fear expressed behind closed doors, according to one insider. That footage, actual season content, might be reinterpreted under today's ethics lens. That moments once seen as just messy TV could now be viewed as psychological pressure, editing abuse, or exploitation. That old storylines could be repackaged and used as proof that the network had a pattern, a timeline, a visible history of pushing emotional collapse for views. Because when viewers start watching reruns not for drama, but for receipts, dangerous. And while all of this unraveled, the cast, past and present, watched it unfold in real time, quietly in group chats, subtly through reposts, but some started asking questions, reaching out to lawyers, comparing clauses, wondering if maybe they'd signed away more than just scenes, all because no one thought to underline the fine print back then. The content you're watching, most of it wasn't lucky timing. A lot of those raw, explosive moments were planned, or at least prompted. That's part of the game. But what changed is now the cast knows it, and the audience knows that the cast knows it. The illusion is cracking. And TLC, for the first time, is afraid the power dynamic might flip. Because if the cast got together and decided to tell their version of the show, the raw, unedited, contract-bound version, TLC wouldn't just have angry comments. They'd have a crisis of control. Everything they cut, every scene they rearranged for plot, every conflict they leaned into instead of de-escalating, could come back labeled as calculated exploitation. And with Bilal already ghosted and Adnan and Tigerlily scorched from every outlet, the red flags are brighter than ever. The glaring question TLC now faces isn't how to fix the show. It's how to stop it from eating itself from the inside out. Executives reportedly started pushing new policies immediately. Nothing public, no big declarations. That would signal guilt or weakness. These were internal directives. Tighter contract clauses going forward, more defined rules around cast interactions, even possible oversight during editing sessions, not for drama purposes, but for audit safety. Producers who once judged scenes for shock value were now quietly being told to consider brand tone before approving footage. Translation: what used to be TV gold might now be considered legal TNT, and everyone involved better think twice before taking risks that can't be deleted later. And all of that still wasn't the scariest shift happening. According to a source deep inside mid-level production, the strongest pressure didn't come from viewers or from cast members. It came from the people writing the checks, sponsors. A few brand partners started asking questions. Not angry, just cautious. How's the public reaction looking? Can you guarantee the show's being filmed ethically? Is there any chance we need to pull our association? That's when things get real. Network loyalty doesn't keep the lights on, ad dollars do. If even one key sponsor pulled public support, it would trigger a domino dive in trust. And every future launch, spin-offs, podcasts, crossover events, would get sideswiped by the residue of this growing mess. Executives know the show has survived fights, breakups, and scandals, but it's never faced this kind of scrutiny, the kind that breaks between entertainment and reality, where people stop watching for drama and start watching for potential crimes. That's not television. That's a liability timeline waiting to be exposed on screen. The weirdest part? All this time, TLC thought it controlled the narrative, but now, the narrative is controlling them. It started with side-eyes in the group chats, then the back-channel messages. Little check-ins between cast members who hadn't spoken in months suddenly felt urgent. Did your contract say that too? Wait, they told you to say that line? You never agreed to the edit they aired, right? One DM turned into 10. Then into quiet phone calls. Slowly, a picture started forming, and it wasn't pretty. Former cast members, some going way back to earlier seasons, started realizing they weren't alone. The rage they felt after watching themselves get cut up or twisted into clickbait wasn't personal. It was systemic. Over and over again, the same complaints bubbled to the surface. Misleading edits, emotional manipulation, promises unkept. The show that sold itself as real couples, raw emotion, turned out to be packaged fiction, and not everyone agreed to how far it would go. One person might have stayed silent, two maybe. But it became hard to ignore when nearly every couple who spoke privately had the same red flags. Castmates who had been embarrassed on TV, who watched their relationships tank under public pressure, who suddenly lost online credibility for behavior that producers just happened to spotlight, now started asking the obvious. Was this designed? When people start comparing war wounds and realizing they were all hit with the same shrapnel, silence doesn't seem so safe anymore. But there's a catch. NDAs, pages and pages. Some signed at the beginning, others slipped in during reunion filming. Paperwork not everyone understood, especially in the excitement of their first time on national TV. A surprisingly common realization. A lot of them didn't fully know what they gave up, how far their image could go, how far a single sentence could be pulled out, twisted, and placed next to B-roll of something they said hours, or even days, later. The gray area wasn't just uncomfortable, it was potentially dangerous. Some cast had entire plotlines that didn't reflect their life, others had emotional moments chopped up and rearranged. A teary talk about personal trauma might have been inserted into an unrelated argument just to fuel clicks. It's legal, yes, but now people were wondering if it was ethical. At least a handful of ex-cast members began talking to lawyers, not necessarily to sue, but to understand what they'd signed in the first place, what rights they had, if going public would wreck their lives or free them from the narrative they never actually agreed to. Because if you're already being memed for something you didn't say the way it looked, what else is left to protect? Some were told their contracts were airtight, but others were told something different. That if unethical practices can be proven, like manipulation, intentional emotional harm, or misrepresenting real situations, some protections might break down. And that sliver of possibility changed everything. Suddenly, legal strategy became a cast-wide rumor. A mass exposure movement didn't seem like a fantasy anymore. It felt possible. Imagine it, 10 former cast members, each with receipts, sitting side by side in a long-form interview, breaking down how different reality looked inside those editing bays. Or worse, screen recording unreleased audition clips, private call logs, or shady texts from producers promising them a storyline in exchange for drama. What happens if the people you built your empire on decide to light that empire on fire? And don't think TLC doesn't know it's coming. According to insiders, they're bracing for something. Quiet moves are happening. Old producers swapped out. Vetting gotten stricter. Some new contracts reportedly include tighter clauses around future commentary, basically a last-minute effort to put a lid on a boiling pot that might already be steaming too loud to contain. But problems don't stay hidden in group chats forever. One cast member posts a cryptic TikTok, another likes a suspicious tweet, screenshots start circulating. Fans pick up on it fast because this audience doesn't scroll blindly anymore. They watch carefully, log everything, and cross-reference clues like reality TV detectives. The fear that used to live only inside boardrooms is now spreading into production teams, into casting scouts, and into talent coordinators trying to figure out which current couples might already be briefing their lawyers in silence. What makes this even more dangerous? Social media doesn't need permission. The cast doesn't need a network to release a statement anymore. It takes just one of them hitting record and dropping raw truths into the lap of a platform hungry for drama that feels realer than what 90 Days been pushing lately. And once one speaks out, more might follow. That's the domino effect TLC is panicking about. It's not the lawsuits yet, it's the whispers, the buildup, the pauses between posts where everyone feels like something is just about to drop. Because if even two couples go public with everything they were told not to say, and everything they saw behind the scenes, they came for love stories, but they stayed for the truth. And now, fans aren't just watching episodes with popcorn in hand. They're pausing scenes, pulling transcripts, matching Instagram timelines, and fact-checking cast bios like investigative interns for a network that never hired them. The audience has shifted. Viewers aren't waiting to be told what's happening, they're exposing it live, often before TLC can even spin damage control. It started small, a miscut clip here. A cast member's social story not matching the narrative aired just hours earlier. But then came the bigger cracks. Deleted footage, missing promos, full cast removals with zero explanation. The rise of viewer commentary accounts, once playful, now surgical in their breakdowns. Suddenly, the fanbase became its own production team, but with stronger ethics, louder voices, and way more receipts. These aren't doomscrollers. They're watchdogs. Hashtag campaigns that once felt wild or offbeat are now being tracked by sponsors. Things like number cancel Bilal or number protect Shida aren't just venting, they're data points, digital petitions with millions of impressions. And big brands run from controversy faster than cast members run from green card questions. Advertisers are allegedly pulling calls, asking for reports. In some cases, suspending partnerships quietly because the risk isn't hype anymore, it's heat. One major beauty brand reportedly flagged negative sentiment in a 48-hour time span after tweets linking their product to the now-erased Tigerlily storyline. Just a few fan-led comments. That alone kicked off a meeting. And those questions never stop at memes. They grow teeth. TikTok content creators with no connection to the show started breaking down scenes for editing inconsistencies. YouTube channels pivoted, from reacting to episodes to calling out manipulation. A scene that once looked like an argument now gets reanalyzed as a setup. Audiences asking, was she really angry or was she pushed there? Was this his real reaction, or was that from another day and stitched in? When viewers stop watching and start investigating, the game changes. What TLC either ignored or couldn't predict was how well-trained this audience had become. Years of exposure to behind-the-scenes tea from other franchises taught them how production works, so now when something feels staged, they know. When a character suddenly shifts tone mid-episode, they clock the cut. When a reaction shot doesn't match the lighting or wardrobe, they archive it. Fans began posting side-by-side comparisons of cast interviews. Callouts over timeline inconsistencies. One creator even used metadata from social media uploads to prove a scene was faked out of order, timelines, camera angles, background changes, evidence-level breakdowns. This is no longer a show, it's a case file, and TLC, still silent, still banking on the story unfolding to clean itself up, but even their social accounts can't keep up anymore. Every post is spammed with questions about missing cast members. Hashtags that should hype new episodes instead drag up old scandals. Every clip they share becomes ammo for skeptics hunting for editing tricks. They misread the tone entirely. They still assume the audience wants drama. What the audience wants is honesty, or at least transparency. Not perfection, just accountability. But instead of addressing the chaos with truth or strategy, TLC tried to bury the controversy under newer storylines. Quieter couples, flashier trailers, but it didn't work, because the viewers saw the shift. Fewer cast promos, tighter editing, less airtime for divisive personalities, more generic emotional music layered over scenes that used to be raw. The viewers could smell what TLC was doing, and they didn't like the smell. Instead of building suspense, the silence created suspicion. Content creators with small followings started blowing up overnight simply because they cared more about telling the truth than entertaining with flourishes. Viewers upgraded them from fan pages to truth seekers. Ironically, these weren't even hardcore drama channels. They were fans, loyal ones, tired of being dismissed while the show tried to sell them doctored pain as scripted entertainment. The most terrifying thing for TLC now, these creators are networks of their own, with audiences big enough to shift perception fast, and many of them are building platforms off showing not the episodes, but what the episodes leave out. Unthinkable a year ago, unstoppable now, and once the fans take control of the narrative, the franchise can't just run the story anymore. There are two kinds of scenes in reality TV, what you see and what you never will. And the stuff sitting in TLC's vault right now? That's not deleted because it was boring. It's locked because airing it might burn the whole house down. According to insiders, Tigerlily allegedly fought harder than any other cast member to block certain scenes from airing. Not because she looked bad, but because, in her words to those close to her, the footage was a trap. She believed producers had set up emotionally loaded situations, waited for the explosion, and filmed her at her worst for something they intentionally provoked. Reality TV fans have seen manipulation before. It's not new. But what Tigerlily claimed was different. She argued these moments involved conversations twisted so far out of context they became narratives she couldn't recognize. Moments allegedly filmed after hours, while mics were still hot. Scenes she says she never agreed to and didn't consent to have spun into villain territory. Some of that footage, according to sources, made it into early cuts. But after formal requests, behind-the-scenes meltdowns, and thinly veiled legal threats, something shifted. Suddenly, that content disappeared. Not aired, not teased, not even hinted at. Because producers reportedly had their own internal panic moment. And the question raised in those rooms changed from, does this make good TV? To something far more serious. Are we liable if this goes live? That's not editing. That's fear. And it wasn't just Tigerlily. Whispers started spreading that Bilal's final exit wasn't due to audience pressure. It was after someone higher up finally watched backlogs of unaired scenes and realized, this isn't just toxic, this might be indefensible. What Bilal showed the world was already bad enough for fans to turn. What TLC allegedly has on tape might explain why they never even tried to explain his disappearance. The contrast between on-camera Bilal, controlled, composed, unbothered, and what insiders claim he presented off-camera reportedly shocked even producers used to working with aggressive personalities. The paper trail mattered now. Not just what was filmed, but what was documented. Discussions about financial information, personal manipulation, and off-screen interactions that didn't match how the network had tried to frame him. It wasn't just hard to explain, it was potentially dangerous. Inside production, debates reportedly got heated. Editors allegedly pushed to sanitize scenes instead of cutting them entirely. But senior producers called for total removal. Quietly, no drama, no announcement. The choice was risk reduction, not damage control, outright avoidance. Because once someone points out that a particular edit might cross from unflattering moment into evidence of psychological manipulation, it can't go back to being just a rough cut. And so the most incriminating scenes never even made it to promo stage. Insiders say there is a digital archive of content TLC won't touch. It's not shelved for pacing. It's sealed because it shows what they don't want viewers to think about, the cost of creating chaos with real people. What happens when someone breaks on camera, not because that's where the story led, but because every trigger was planted with precision. There's an alleged confrontation where a cast member was pushed to talk about a past trauma, while scripted questions poked at wounds that hadn't been cleared for air. There's reportedly footage of legal confusion over a contract handed out mid-season. There are moments that feature crew coaching cast from just out of frame, feeding lines, escalating arguments. And these aren't isolated. That's what's terrifying insiders now. It looks like a pattern. The term reality only works if it doesn't show its own manipulation. If that spell breaks, the audience doesn't just turn, they revolt. Some producers are now reportedly trying to preemptively review every active couple's footage for liability flags before issues even come up. Trying to spot the next Tigerlily before she explodes. But that only works if the damage hasn't already been done. And most insiders agree it has. Allegedly, legal suggested TLC hold off on using certain footage indefinitely, not delete, just to freeze, which sounds safe, until you realize that content still exists, and someone somewhere knows what's in it. The internet loves deleted scenes until they start looking like cover-ups, because what happens if even one of those unaired moments leaks? What if Tigerlily wasn't bluffing? What if there's raw footage that proves being the villain wasn't a character trait but an edited weapon? And worse, what if she's not the only one? They haven't said a word. Not a tweet, a press release, not even a carefully worded, "we value our cast" kind of statement. And that's not an oversight, it's the plan. TLC's response to the disappearing cast members, the open fan outrage, and the rising suspicion over the show's ethics has been surgical silence. No apologies, no acknowledgements, just nothing. But make no mistake, that's not indecision, it's strategy. And in legal circles, silence is its own kind of statement. Because once a network says something, anything, it becomes a record. A statement you can reference, use against them, tear apart for contradictions later. So instead of doing what most brands do during controversy, like damage control or public reassurance, TLC seems to be betting everything on omission. If there's no official word, there's nothing to confirm or deny. But here's the problem, they aren't just ghosts, they're ghosts in plain sight. Cast who were heavily promoted, featured in teasers, paid to engage, suddenly blacked out despite massive fan curiosity, and TLC thinks it can outwait the storm. Not this time. This audience isn't scrolling anymore. They're focused, vocal, immune to being distracted by new love triangles and imported drama. Saying nothing only works when no one's asking questions. Now, everyone is. The network has likely calculated that speaking out would cause more legal heat than silence. Experts have probably already told them, One wrong phrasing could imply fault. A careless acknowledgement could ignite contract breaches, spark cast lawsuits, or damage brand valuations. So instead, they choose the non-comment. No comment can't be ripped into as easily, until it is. Because silence can be a shield, but it can also become a confession. And this time, the weight of what's unspoken is louder than any press quote they could have drafted. Every time they skip a cast name in a trailer, remove a scene without context, or quietly move forward with new couples as if nothing happened, fans take notice. And not just fans, critics, content creators, journalists. More than one entertainment reporter has publicly called out the erasure of Tigerlily and Adnan. And still, TLC pretends not to hear it. The entire disappearance of Bilal, it wasn't treated as a transition. He was just gone, mentions wiped, nothing to explain it. That left content creators and audiences to fill the vacuum. And they did. Loudly, passionately, and with theories backed by real-world receipts. And yet TLC sticks with the strategy: hide behind the formula, promote something else, shuffle scenes, push flashier, shallower couples. Hope the fanbase is still more interested in messy, dicey romantic situations than structural corruption. But here's what they miscalculated. Drama only works when the audience believes it's coming from the couples. Not when the audience starts suspecting the network is the one pulling strings too hard. Every week that goes by without a proper comment, a policy update, a hint that someone is even learning from the backlash, it stiffens the network's image. What once felt polished now feels shady. What once seemed selective now feels deceitful. One executive inside the industry reportedly said off record, "They're betting on fatigue, but the audience isn't tired. They're just getting started." And TLC's worst-case scenario? That silence is interpreted not as professionalism or caution, but as guilt. That staying quiet is the clearest sign they knew exactly what they were doing. And that they did it anyway, especially because they've done something before. Think about past situations. When a cast member got arrested, there was at least a distancing attempt, a vaguely worded update. Even if canned, that's something. But here, there's no statement at all. Not even, "At this time, we stand by our editorial decisions," boilerplate. You can't remove major cast members and think the audience won't notice. You can't cut scenes and pretend they were never included in press materials. You can't replace screen time with silence and expect fans to move on. It's not just what TLC has failed to say. It's what that silence is now saying about them. Because this was never just about Bilal, or Tigerlily, or any one scandal. Their stories became symbols. Lit matches fluttering near a gas leak that has been building from cracks in the system for years. TLC probably hoped those flames would fizzle out, not realizing the spark had already reached fan hands. And fans aren't throwing firecrackers, they're carrying torches now. It's hard to rebuild trust when the audience feels lied to. But it's impossible when that audience isn't even being acknowledged. And the longer this silence stretches, the louder the backlash becomes. Quiet may feel like control from the inside, but from the outside, it reeks of fear. It was never just about Bilal, or Tigerlily, or Adnan, not really. One cast member disappearing can be explained. A couple getting villain edits, sure, it happens. But when fan favorites vanish with no closure, when scenes suddenly feel censored, when production patterns look more like psychological warfare and less like storytelling, fans stop asking what went wrong with one couple. They start asking, has it all been fake? Because this moment, this storm, isn't isolated. It's the debt finally coming due on years of pushing people to emotional collapse for ratings. TLC didn't just build a reality show. They built a pressure cooker. Take strangers from different cultures, throw in legal tension, cultural misunderstandings, financial imbalance, and time limits, and then poke, prod, and splice until it breaks on camera. And when it doesn't break fast enough, they allegedly help it along. What's happening now is reframing everything that came before. People are going back and watching old seasons through a different lens. Remember Karin's breakdowns, Chantal's family confrontations, Angela's verbal explosions that were always somehow packaged as entertaining. Some moments that felt messy now feel like missed cries for help. Patterns fans brushed off now feel scripted in reverse. Looking back, it's not edgy, it's disturbing, and it's impossible to unsee. For cast members, there's no undoing what's been done. Their lowest moments live online forever. Divorce announcements, miscarriage reveals, abusive behavior, all caught on episode format, replayed for years. Some of them signed away their image rights so early, they didn't know how much control they were handing over. And now, people recognize that's not passive drama, it's exploitation. When pain gets repackaged as primetime content, the aftermath doesn't stay on set, it spills into real life and doesn't stop. Now, people wonder if that conflict between Jenny and Sumit's parents wasn't just organic tension. Maybe it was rehearsed, maybe it was reshot. What else was nudged, biased, edited into a new shape with music cues and reaction cuts? The problem isn't just the stories, it's how they were told and how people were treated telling them. Producers didn't just capture drama, they allegedly engineered it, encouraged tension, filmed through it, then edited for clicks. And once the camera cut, the cast lived with the aftermath: harassment, death threats, reputational ruin, and in some cases, complete life collapse. But the show keeps rolling. That's the fracture. That's what's different now. Because fans are tired of seeing people get discarded once their value runs dry. For TLC, the question isn't can we survive this storyline anymore. It's can the audience ever believe us again? And that's harder. Because the audience isn't watching to escape anymore. They're watching to see what TLC will hide next. And a franchise built on love now feels like a machine that chews people up in the name of algorithms. The reputational tier isn't small, it's a gash, and it keeps widening. Every time they delete a cast appearance without a trace, the silence becomes louder. Every time they issue no response to multi-million view commentary takedowns, trust crumbles faster. How many scenes have we seen where a person practically begs for compassion, and instead gets cut up and memed for shock value? Do the ratings still justify that? People are starting to say no. More fans are walking away than ever. Not because the show is boring, but because it's too cruel. The fun's gone. The obsession over who gets their visa has been replaced with threads about who was psychologically worn down until they cracked. Channels that used to recap now spend their intros reminding fans not to harass the cast. Comment sections now look like case reviews. People aren't laughing anymore, they're auditing. And while that fury is still viewership for now, it's not sustainable. Because eventually, even hate watchers get tired. There's a reason more and more fans are saying they miss early seasons. Not because they were sweeter, but because they still felt real. Now, everything feels staged and stripped of humanity. Fast fame, fast trauma, quick rollout, and then total silence when the consequences arrive. And here's the unforgivable reality: TLC has had chances to learn. This isn't their first scandal, not even their fifth, but this time, there's no character arc big enough, no couple fiery enough, no spin-off dramatic enough to erase the fact that this isn't just a show anymore. The franchise itself has become the scandal. And now, instead of asking, what happens to these couples after the show ends, people are asking, how much more can they hide before the entire thing collapses? And when your audience no longer roots for love, but investigates producers, you've already lost the plot.